What's up? My name's Ken Susi. I'm here on tour currently in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm here today with you, Axe FX, all you users out there, to showcase my rig and how I use it. Many of you know me from as a founding member of the band Unearth. For years and years and years, I used real amplifiers. I am a huge fan of all real amps, real speakers, usually Celestion, Greenback, V30, X pattern, which I have in my cabs out here. But I shouldn't be standing here talking about a digital unit, right? When I joined As I Lay Dying, Phil, the other guitar player or one of the main members of the band, was like, listen, we have a lot of production. I want to scale down the rig to as small as possible. And at that point, I got kind of nervous because that means I have to go into digital territory. So I tried a lot of other amplifiers or digital amplifiers, such as and even though they're all good and they can produce sound and they have their thing, I got a call from Mark Lewis, producer, and he was just saying, hey man, I've been messing around with an Axe FX in the studio just to see what it's about. And he was like, this is definitely the realest sounding compared to my amps. And at that point, I always trust his judgment because he's such a great guy. Ever since then, I've realized that compared to my amplifiers, especially even if you just wanted to run your Axe FX through a power amp and through a cab, it's absolutely like high def, really good, wide sounding. I think it's the perfect unit. I don't think any other unit can do what the Axe FX does. Being an As I Lay Dying fan over the years, obviously I've been a peer of theirs and touring with them for years. I didn't want to do an injustice as far as tone goes to their catalog. So, good friend of mine is Andy Sneap, producer of Shadows Our Security. So I hit up Andy and I said, hey, do me a favor. I hear that the Axe FX, I already know this is a good unit, but they do a really good tone capture. I want to test it. And I want to test it with something that I think would work for me on tour with these guys. And so he sent me a 2-track and a DI of left and right side of that particular album, already EQ'd, already finalized, and all that great stuff. So he sent it to me. I tone matched it, spent a few hours with it, just kind of tweaking, going into the surgical EQ just to get it to where I thought it sounded exactly like it. And also knowing that I'm going to be playing live room, so I messed around with it just a touch more because I know what my front house guy is going to like. And I nailed it because I sent it back to Andy and he said, man, this is really, really close. And that is what's going to my front house and my ears. We use in-ears. So that's what I hear regularly. We run on a laptop, as you can see behind me, and the click tracks get spit out, and my MIDI just circles and changes as we go. So some tracks I need filters on, some tracks I need a lead, so I have a delay and a chorus and a little additional EQ, but ultimately it's really, really easy to do. I have a gate, and you can show the settings. You got the overdrive, which is there. You got the amp, which is that. It's a 6505. It was based off of that lead. The original amp was a crank. And then you have the tone match, which is just whatever. And then this is my corrective EQ. I'm just sucking out a little bit of 500 or 5,000, sorry, and shelving off a lot of the top end. Then you've got patch 2, which introduces a filter. And that's if you look at this, it's just kind of a big notch on the low end and the top end. I add chorus to it just to be super sexy. As you can tell, I have a little bit of slapback delay on there, but it's good for little things it's real small and kind of tight. And then the only other tone I'm really using is I like to call it my Steve Vai tone, where it's I got delay and a little bit of corrective EQ, just kind of broadening the mid-range a little bit, and it's good for lead. It's always good to hear the nice delay. And sometimes I add chorus to it. It's a little more Vai-ish. I guess the dream tone is trying to get that Crossroads Steve Vai tone, so that's why I added a very, very slow chorus on there. But sometimes it just rotates between basically those 3 or 4 tones, and that's primarily all I need for this particular band, but I use a lot of other stuff in the studios. Tosin Abasi, Javier share some patches with me and stuff, and they have some tremendous clean tones, which are like very spiky and dynamic. And their heavy tones are pretty awesome too. So I just mess around, but I'm still a new user here. And but so far I've been really, really, really happy. And one thing I can say is that when I'm on the road, I've actually seen I'm just gonna say the competitive landscape, all the different like units out there. I'm not gonna name names, but I've seen them go down. I've seen 4 and 5, models of X, Y, and Z, like meeting up with a band on tour and being like, "Oh, dude, I tried that unit, but like I broke 2 of them," or like, "Oh, I got to Indonesia, and then the next thing you know, we had to take it apart and put a SIM card in it and blah 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 to fix this and that." My Axe FX has literally, I don't even have a backup on me. I have one European rig that has a turbo, which I currently use, and then I have this one is the non-turbo that Matt was like nice enough to give to me. And so my non-turbo stays in the United States. I have one unit, and then the turbo stays in Europe. And I've never had to panic. The MIDI works fluently. It's quick. So it's been a workhorse, whereas I can't say that for other units that have been on tour. So as we moved along in tour, I really felt the need that I wanted some feedback. So I set up another line of information that goes in, right, and goes right down, and it kind of shares the same input to my guitar. So one line is going to the front house, the other line is going to go strictly to a guitar, a power amp and a cab. Yeah, so this is my EVH cab loaded up with Greenback and Vintage 30. I've always notoriously been using Vintage 30 my whole career, but the Greenback is another added element that I feel is like super smooth and silky. So it's in an X pattern, and I just don't think Greenbacks, which kind of come with this cab, are appropriate for metal. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, but for me I'm looking for thickness and tightness, and these 2 speakers have made this cab sound extraordinarily good. It's probably one of my best sounding cabs. What I wanted for As I Lay Dying was something that was Soldano-y or EVH-ish or PV-ish, something that was, amp companies lie to you sometimes and say they're 100-watt amps, and I wanted something that was like a lying 100-watt amp that was like burn 60 but kind of saturated and cold sounding. So I went through the 5150. That was, I think, my first choice, or 6150 or whatever you guys call it, the Plus. They have funny names for it inside. So I tried that. That was really good, and I tried a bunch of other ones out, but I settled for, I believe it was called a Diesel Blue V4 amp or something like that, and that was a special one, because when I was done tweaking that and I was really happy with the tone, I was like proud, and I called Matt and I was like, "Listen, this amp's working out really well." And I said, "I think I found like the best amp." And he's like, "Oh, is it the Diesel?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, that's the secret one that everyone loves." So my ears, I was really, I felt really great knowing that my ears kind of worked in this scenario, because I did pick the one that Fractal, I think, seems to think it's the best for hard rock and heavy metal. You have this gate drive, which is similar, little different settings. And then I have the Dizzy V4 Blue 4. And then I have this right here. That's my corrective EQ is crazy, because that's, I was dialing it into a specific amp at my house through a certain cab. I also have a YouTube channel. I actually go through point by point every single stage of how I set up my live rig and what my cab sounds like, a 57 through my cab versus what the direct signal is. So if you really want to get surgical here,